Wrong again. June 25, 2019 by Anna von Reitz. Day after day I see articles and news stories aimed at the evil Zionists and accusing Chabad Association of all manner of wrongdoing. Fine. The Zionist hands are far from clean, however, in their defense, those that are making up these news stories, and most of it is literally made up, aren't telling the whole story. It's the British at the bottom of that dog pile, like nearly everything else that goes wrong in the world. Who set up the British Protectorate? The Pope and the Queen, the same bad actors responsible for the worldwide Babylonian slave system. Who labeled Palestine and created Palestinians, the Pope and the Queen, acting in concert again? Who has had their pert noses stuck in Middle East politics ever since Lawrence of Arabia? The Pope and the Queen, again. It's monotonous. Boring. Don't even bother to look for other answers, because we already have. They not only created Palestine. They created Israel, too, and set up the whole playing field to inculcate a permanent state of war in the Middle East, just as they did in America. And all the while, they have pretended to be the saintly, sanctimonious, innocent third parties, just trying to do the right thing. Bourgeois. It's not what they say, it's what they do, and the fruits of what they do, that counts. They set up and played the players and played their roles to perfection, but at the end of the day, they are still bad actors and their fingerprints remain firmly stuck to absolutely all of it. And why did they do this? Any misbegotten dream of returning the Jews home to Canaan? Nothing so romantic. They wanted to improve their holdings in the Middle East, set up a new hotel on Broad Street, a base of operations from which they could monitor everything and everyone in the Middle East and interfere endlessly in the politics of the region and, hopefully from their standpoint, control Middle Eastern oil. Keep it dripping very slowly and expensively but surely out of the region for decades. So they've drained away the Middle Eastern oil supplies and profited from that, and now they've opened up the American oil supplies and everyone pretends that it is a big surprise that America and Canada are sitting on oil and gas reserves that make the Middle East look small by comparison. Oh, my, Dorothy. We've been lied to again. That really shouldn't be a surprise, should it? The oil and gas reserves that we are just now tapping in America have been known about since the 1890s. Theodore Roosevelt's natural resource policy has been deftly applied, buy everyone else's natural resources for pennies on a dollar and save ours until after theirs are depleted, so that everyone is dependent on us and forced to pay 10 times what we paid for theirs. Just watch the wheels roll. All the suffering in Venezuela? Nothing but the cruelty and greed of London and Washington, D.C., trying to corner the market and totally control oil and gas reserves in the Americas. ISIS? A multinational task force of special ops mercenaries bought and paid for by the Bank of England out of Qatar. All those adolescent Christian girls on crosses? All the people being beheaded? The children being burned to death in cages? That was ISIS. That was the Bank of England, the Lord Mayor, all the thugs of Westminster and Whitehall and their snarky pals in DC, looking for publicity and support for their invasion of the Middle East. All this publicity about America being energy independent. Question mark. We were always in position to be energy independent. All it needed was for a group of cretins in DC to determine, in concert with their brethren in London, of course, that it was time to reveal the immensity of the American oil reserves. Now, does anyone actually believe that Donald Trump or any other business manager involved in these long-range schemes is going to roll over and allow the distribution of free energy devices in Africa or anywhere else? No. They are still following the Roosevelt Plan, which is rolling out on schedule. The American oil reserves are being accessed. The Jews and the Iranians are being blamed for the continuing belt-tightening and discontent in the Middle East. La, how the world goes round. The Zionists in Israel are being led around by the nose by London and Rome and unknowingly supporting their own destruction, but what choice do they have? Israel was created by London and Rome, depends on London and Rome for its existence, and can't imagine that their destruction by London and Rome is already on the horizon. Israel, the scapegoat. All pre-planned. As the Pope and the Queen pull out of the Middle East and it is no longer important, Israel loses its primary reason for being, in their view. No matter what religious value one ascribes to the region, without oil, its economic value devolves to dates and olives and whatever sheer brain power can make of it. So the hidden enemies of Christianity embedded in the Church of Rome can rejoice in the destruction of all the Holy Land, and the Brits and the US will have their scapegoat to blame, and the Arabs who have been misled as to who their actual enemies are, can be counted on to do the dirty work. The whole show rolls up like a carnival leaving town, and the locusts move onward, to China. Profit and political power is what these people in London and Rome worship, and if they have any other thoughts or values, it is news to us. They have absolutely reveled in selling America as the land of the free, while removing all the Americans from the land jurisdiction and enslaving them with bogus commercial contracts and false legal presumptions. When they set up the federal rules of civil procedure and mandated that the courts provide an appearance of justice, they weren't kidding, they were giving disclosure. Only an appearance of justice is provided by the for-hire jurists, the equivalent of mercenaries on the bench, as a matter of public policy. There is no consideration for any human value or common decency in any of this calculated scheming, because corporations aren't human and could care less how much people suffer or how many die, as long as their profits are healthy. This is why more and more people need to wake up. It's only a matter of time until corporations plan the demise of the human race, and judging from their actions thus far, it appears that the institution responsible for limiting the power of the corporations, the Roman Curia, is not doing its job. Now, no doubt, there is howling and growling and gnashing of teeth as the guilty parties read this and realize, OMG, we've been found out, but it has been long known that the truth would set us, slaves, free and end the power to deceive. It shouldn't surprise anyone that this time has finally come.